Our reading today comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. Listen now for the word of the Lord. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. This is the word of the Lord. Pray with me. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, dear Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. One of my favorite things about Michigan is something that we already have touched on, and that's the fact that we have 4 seasons in Michigan, and we get to experience all of them in their fullness. We're not Florida, where like winter doesn't exist. We're not like upper Alaska, where maybe summer is not really summer. I like that we get the full gambit. And there's something beautiful about each season. We've talked about winter and the sledding and the snowing and all the good things that come with that. And there's also, fall, which is when we get to see all the beautiful colors. All the leaves are falling, you get to jump in leaf piles, everything good. Football starts, everything starts in fall, everything that's taken a break over the summer. In the summertime, we have summer vacation, everyone's taking little breaks, the days are really long, so it feels like we actually get to enjoy all of our days. It's not like hard to go out at night like it is in the winter. Right now I'm like, 6 o'clock, it's dark, it's basically bedtime. But in the summer, you can kind of go forever. Like, it's 10 o'clock and the sun just set. In the spring, I think that was my favorite season in college, particularly because I went to a small school. It's called Hope College. It's on the west side of the state, and it gets so much snow. But everyone in the winter, has layers upon layers on, and they just kind of trudge to their next class. And they look down because you don't want the wind to go into your eyes. You don't want the snow blowing into your eyes. But in the spring, everyone starts to look up again. And you get to make eye contact with people and wave to people that you see on the sidewalk as you're going to class. And I love that. I love that feeling of reconnecting and the way that life is coming back. My favorite smell is the smell when all the snow is melting and you can smell the earth. Start to grow, and it's kind of warm. I don't know how to describe it more than that, but I think you all know maybe what I'm talking about, but that smell is so good. I love all these things about the seasons. They're so different, and they each bring something new. And I think in Michigan we know seasons more than other people. I just think we do. Maybe some other states got it too, but we just really know. And I think the author of Ecclesiastes also knows the seasons pretty well. This might be a pretty familiar list. A time to plant, a time to pluck up, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to weep, a time to laugh. Embracing and non-embracing. He covers pretty much everything under the sun. And this list is not the easiest thing to read. I always kind of hesitate by the time I get to verse 3. And we have to say a time to kill and a time to heal. And I'm like, I don't know if we have to have a time to kill. I think we could probably skip that and be all right. And we use this verse for weddings sometimes, quite often. And that seems weird to me, that we're just talking about casually killing in our wedding verses. Time for war, times for hating. And I get this little hesitant feeling that says, maybe we shouldn't be embracing these seasons. Maybe we shouldn't be hoping for these times. On one hand, it shows the balance an understanding of the twists and turns of life, of how there's so many different things. But really a time for war? Is there really a time when we should decide it's time for hate? I really don't think so. I know that my instinct in most situations is to think about what I can do, how I can act. If someone's upset or sad, I'm starting to make a list. All right, how can I fix this problem? What can I do to change this for them? Or when something is going on in the world, my instinct is, what can I do? How can I help? And another tendency that I know I have is when I read the Bible is to lean into the things that I have to do to be a Christian. I think about the things that I have to get done, like be kind to my neighbor, love everyone, fight injustice. I got my checklist of things to do. And I think that instinct of, having to fix things and our instinct of having to check the little boxes of our list to be a good Christian comes into play with this verse. We see this as we have to go and plant. There's a time to plant, so we must go and plant. There's a time to mourn, so we should be mourning. There's a time for seeking, so we should be doing that seeking. We see this list as a check mark to get through life. I've already thrown away stones and lost something, and I was born, so I'm doing pretty good. But I still have 3 more things to get through. I have to throw some stuff away, I have to sow some things. But I don't think that's what this verse is. I don't think it's a prescriptive list of things that have to get done, that we have to participate in. I think it's a descriptive list of what the world is around us. The author of Ecclesiastes is far from an optimist. I think he would maybe classify himself as a realist. Earlier in the book, he writes these other verses. Life is a toil. It's absurd. It's meaningless. All things are wearisome. All things are vanity and chasing after the wind. I guess maybe even pessimist would be the better word for him. But I think whether it's through pessimism or realism, he gives us this gift of description of our world as it is. There are times and seasons of the world of all of the things on this list, whether we like it or not. Not things that we have to participate in, but that exist. To take a day like January 6th and not call that a season of hate would be not to see the world as it is. To be in denial about the lives lost in our 4th Street community recently and not name that a season of death and loss and mourning would be a disservice to the people that we lost. I think there are times that naming something is really important. And this is what Ecclesiastes is doing. It's naming these different seasons of our world, saying, yes, these things exist. And sometimes that comforts me, that I'm not going crazy, that I'm not seeing things, that it's not just another random twist of the world, but that these things happen. To not recognize that you're in a season that you're in might mean losing what you could gain from that season. You're losing the gifts, you're losing the chance to rest, the time to allow yourself to experience those things fully. And it definitely might mean that you're missing the community around you. I really love the seasons in Michigan, but one thing that I don't love about Michigan is that you get every season more than once. You get first winter, and then you get fall spring, where everything melts really quick, and then you get a second winter, where we get 2 feet more snow. And then we get another little fall spring start, and then we get our last dump of snow, final winter, before we finally transition into spring. And in that back and forth, that longing for a new season, or maybe rejection of the new season, that can be one of the hardest times. We might want to move forward to something new, or we want desperately to stay where we are and to not move forward. I would say our country is still in a pandemic season right now, and it's kind of gotten to that back and forth moment where 1 minute we are kind of relaxing things and online worship isn't necessary, and then all of a sudden we're double masking again. We're trying to figure out what to do next. Do we have to cancel these events? And that back and forth, that unknown, that transition of seasons is really, really difficult. And I think naming the fact that it's difficult, naming the fact that we've gone back and forth a bunch of times, the fact that we're tired, is really important. It might not be the happiest, the most optimistic way forward, but I think it's really important to stop and name the fact that we're tired. This is hard. Detroit is in a changing season as a city. Neighborhoods are changing, downtown is different. 4th Street specific neighborhood is really shifting in what it is and what it needs. And that's hard for us as people who are downtown, as people who live and try to connect with our community. It's hard not to know what to do, not to really understand quite where we're going to be. We're kind of still moving, we're kind of still changing and growing. It's hard. But I wonder if naming that and wondering what 4th Street season is might help us in naming it. You might be going through any myriad of seasons right now. You might be learning to be a parent of a walking, talking child instead of one that just kind of rolls on the floor. You could be letting go of someone you loved. Maybe it's the joy and laughter of being a grandparent. Maybe it's the busyness of working really hard. We can name these realities and share them with each other, and that helps us grow together and learn how to be together. And I was going to skip this because I thought we were going to be in the sanctuary, but then we moved here. So now we're going to do it. We are going to take a minute, and we're going to pause and reflect and think about maybe what season we might be in right now. It could be one from the list that I've read off. It could be one that you kind of make up in your own head of parenthood or school or any of those things. And we're going to turn to our neighbor, and I invite you to share that with them. What season are you in right now? And I know sometimes our instinct is to, fix things, to do things, like I said earlier, but we're just going to hear and honor each other in that season. And I think that could be just as worthwhile as doing something. So everyone take a beat, think about maybe where you're at. I can list off a couple more ideas if you need one. I invite you to turn to someone near you, a neighbor, friend, and share what season of life you're going through. If you're online, you can share it in the chat or message somebody. I forgot about you, but I didn't forget about you right now. All right, go ahead and wrap it up. If one more person needs to go, get through them real quick. 2 more people need to go? Okay. All right, I'm going to call us back together. Thank you all for participating in that. I know it can be a little nerve-wracking, but I think that sharing together and naming things together means we get to walk through things together, that we get to be a community together, that we get to learn more, trust each other, and be together. And we have the season that our country is going through, that the world is going through, that we are personally going through, and we as a church are going through together. And I just invite you to wonder more and more about where you are and where the church is, so that we can learn from where we are and describe our reality and be together. I know some of us are in harder seasons or in joyous seasons, but I invite us all to hear this final word from Ecclesiastes. This list starts with birth and ends with peace. Birth is something we have no control over, but new life comes from God. And peace might not always be the world we live in, but we end the list with it anyway. In the rhythm of this passage, if you look at the last 2 lines, the last couplet, we have a time to love and a time to hate, a time for peace and a time for war, is how it should read, right? If it was to mirror itself, to go love to hate, peace to war. But it doesn't do that. It flips it in a moment of faithful hope, of maybe the optimism that might sneak into our really upset teacher of Ecclesiastes. Instead, he writes a time for love, a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. This list is bookended by birth and peace. God is faithful in all seasons, no matter where we might be. And God will have the final word on our world with a season of peace. May our world be no different than how it will end. Pray with me. God, thank you for your faithfulness. God, thank you for the ways that you show care and love in any season of life that we are going through. God, I pray that you comfort, that you love, and that you show us your way forward. Help us to name things that are hard and difficult, and help us to rest